Maria walked slowly down Fifth Avenue. Her old shoes made small sounds on the wet street. The rain had stopped, but water still dripped from the big buildings above her. She pulled her thin coat closer to her body. The coat was too big for her, and had holes in many places. She had not eaten for 2 days. Her stomach hurt from being empty for so long. Maria looked at the fancy restaurants and cafes as she walked. Through the big windows, she could see people eating good food. They wore nice clothes and smiled as they talked. Maria touched the few coins in her pocket. She did not have enough money to buy even a small piece of bread. Then she saw it. A beautiful cafe with golden letters on the window that said, Bella Vista. Through the glass, Maria could see a black piano in the corner. The piano was big and shiny. It looked like the one her father used to play when she was little. Her heart began to beat faster. Maria remembered her father's hands moving across the white and black keys. She remembered the beautiful music that filled their small apartment. Those were happy times before everything went wrong, before her father died, before her mother started drinking, before they lost their home. She stood outside the cafe for a long time. Rich people walked in and out. The men wore expensive suits. The women had perfect hair and carried designer bags. A man in a black uniform opened the door for them and smiled. Maria knew she did not belong in a place like this. But she was so hungry. And she could play piano. Her father had taught her well before he died. Maybe, just maybe, they would let her play some music in exchange for food. It was worth trying. Maria took a deep breath and walked toward the door. The man in the uniform looked at her with surprise. His smile disappeared when he saw her dirty clothes and messy hair. But he opened the door anyway. Inside, the cafe was even more beautiful. The floor was made of shiny white stone. Crystal lights hung from the ceiling. The walls had expensive paintings. Everything looked perfect and clean. Maria felt very small and dirty in this place. The people inside stared at her. Some whispered to each other and pointed. Maria heard a woman say, "What is she doing here?" A man laughed and said, "Someone should call security." The manager walked quickly toward Maria. He was a tall man with gray hair and an angry face. "Excuse me, miss," he said in a cold voice. "This is a private establishment. You cannot be here without proper dress code." Maria's face turned red. She wanted to run away, but her hunger was stronger than her shame. "Please, sir," she said quietly. "I can play piano very well. Maybe I can play some music for your customers and you can give me a little food?" The manager's mouth opened in shock. Then he started to laugh. Soon, other people in the cafe were laughing too. The sound was loud and mean. Maria felt tears start to come to her eyes. "You want to play our piano?" The manager said, still laughing. "This is a Steinway grand piano worth more than most people's cars. You think we would let someone like you touch it?" A woman in a fur coat said loudly, "This is ridiculous. Make her leave before she steals something." Another man called out, "Security, get this homeless person out of here." Maria stood there as everyone laughed and pointed at her. She felt smaller and smaller, but then she looked at the piano again. It was calling to her, just like her father's piano used to do. She remembered what her father always told her. "Music is the language of the heart, Maria. When you play, you speak directly to people's souls." Without thinking, Maria walked toward the piano. The manager followed her, his face getting redder and angrier. "Stop right there," he shouted. "You cannot touch that piano." But Maria was already sitting on the piano bench. She looked at the keys. They were perfect, clean and white, just like the ones her father used to play. She could almost hear his voice saying, "Remember, Maria, let the music flow through you. Don't think too much, just feel." The manager reached out to grab her arm. "I'm calling the police," he said. But Maria had already placed her fingers on the keys. The whole cafe became quiet for a moment. Everyone was watching her, waiting to see what would happen. Some people had their phones out, ready to record her failure. Maria closed her eyes. She thought about her father. She thought about all the hungry nights. She thought about sleeping in cold doorways. She thought about the music that had kept her alive when everything else was gone. Then she began to play. The first note was soft and clear. It filled the entire cafe like magic. The second note followed, then the third. Soon a beautiful melody was flowing from the piano. It was Chopin's Ballade No. 1, the first piece her father had taught her when she was 8 years old. The laughter stopped. The pointing stopped. The mean words stopped. Everyone in the cafe stood still, listening. The music was so beautiful, so perfect that no one could move. Maria played with all her heart. Her fingers danced across the keys like they belonged there. The sad parts of the music told the story of her life. The beautiful parts reminded everyone of love and hope. The difficult parts showed her strength and skill. Tears started to fall from her eyes as she played, but she did not stop. This was her chance. This was her moment to show the world who she really was. Not just a hungry, dirty girl from the street, but a musician, an artist. Her father's daughter. The manager's hand was still in the air, reaching for her. But now he was frozen, listening to the most beautiful music he had ever heard. His mouth was open in amazement. In the cafe, waiters stopped serving food. Customers stopped eating. The woman in the fur coat had tears in her eyes. The man who had called for security was recording with his phone, but not to make fun of Maria anymore. He was recording because he knew he was hearing something special. Maria played on, putting all her pain and hope into every note. The piano sang under her fingers. The music filled every corner of the room, touching every heart. For the first time in months, Maria felt like she was home. The music flowed through the cafe like water. Every person inside stopped what they were doing. The rich businessman who was laughing at Maria just a minute ago now sat with his mouth open. The woman in the expensive dress forgot about her phone call. Even the waiters carrying heavy trays stopped moving. Maria's fingers moved across the piano keys like dancers. She did not look at the music sheets because she did not need them. The song was inside her heart and mind. Her father had taught her this piece when she was very young. She had played it hundreds of times in their small apartment. The piano was much better than any piano Maria had played before. Each key responded perfectly to her touch. When she pressed softly, the sound was gentle like a whisper. When she pressed harder, the sound was strong, like thunder. The piano seemed to understand exactly what she wanted to say. As Maria played, she remembered her father's lessons. "Feel the music, Maria," he used to say. "Don't just play the notes. Tell a story with each sound." She could almost see him sitting next to her on the bench, guiding her hands. The song had many different parts. Some parts were very fast, with her fingers flying across the keys like birds. Other parts were slow and sad, making everyone think of people they missed. The difficult part showed how skilled Maria was. Her hands moved in ways that seemed impossible. People in the cafe began to cry. They did not know why the music made them so emotional, but they could not help it. The sound reached deep into their hearts and found feelings they had forgotten about. Some thought about their childhood. Others thought about loved ones who had died. Everyone felt something special. The manager still stood near the piano, but now his face was completely different. The anger was gone. Instead, he looked amazed and confused. He had worked in fancy restaurants for 20 years, but he had never heard anything like this. His hand, which had been reaching to pull Maria away, slowly dropped to his side. In the back of the cafe, an old man named Jonathan Hayes sat at a small table. He was a music critic for the New York Times. He had come to the cafe to meet a friend for lunch. But now he forgot all about food. Jonathan had heard the best piano players in the world. He had been to concerts at Carnegie Hall and Lincoln Center. But this young woman played better than any of them. Jonathan's hand shook as he pulled out his phone. He had to record this. The world needed to hear this music. But as he started to record, he noticed something that made his heart beat faster. The way Maria played reminded him of someone. The style, the technique, the special way she shaped each note. It was exactly like Victor Petrov. Victor Petrov had been one of the greatest piano players who ever lived. Jonathan had seen him perform many times before he disappeared from the music world 15 years ago. People said Victor had died in a car accident, but his body was never found. His wife and daughter had vanished too. Could this young woman be Victor's daughter? Jonathan studied Maria's face as she played. She had dark hair and green eyes, just like Victor. Her hands were long and thin, perfect for playing piano. The more Jonathan watched, the more certain he became. Maria reached the most difficult part of the song. Her left hand played deep, powerful notes while her right hand danced with a beautiful melody on top. Most piano players would need years of practice to play this part correctly. But Maria made it look easy. Her face was calm and peaceful, even though her hands were doing very complicated things. The cafe was completely silent except for the music. No one coughed. No one moved. Even the sounds from the street outside seemed to disappear. It was as if the whole world had stopped to listen to Maria play. A young couple at a table near the window held hands and cried. The music reminded them of their wedding day. An old woman remembered dancing with her husband who had died last year. A little girl visiting with her grandmother thought the music sounded like magic. The waiters had put down their trays and stood against the walls. They had heard many people play the piano in the cafe before, but this was different. This was not just entertainment. This was art. This was something that changed people's lives. Maria felt the power of the music flowing through her. For the first time in months, she forgot about being hungry. She forgot about sleeping in cold places. She forgot about people who were mean to her. There was only the music and the feeling of her father being near her. The song began to build toward the end. The notes came faster and faster. Maria's hands moved like lightning across the keys. But even though the music was very fast, every note was perfect. Not one mistake, not one wrong sound. It was like watching a master artist paint a beautiful picture. Jonathan continued recording with his phone. His hands were still shaking because he could not believe what he was hearing. This was not just good piano playing. This was genius. This was the kind of talent that came along once in a generation. The manager looked around at his customers. They were all completely focused on Maria and her music. He had never seen anything like this in his cafe. People had completely forgotten about their expensive meals and important business meetings. All that mattered was the young woman at the piano. As the song reached its final moments, Maria played with even more passion. Her whole body moved with the music. Tears continued to fall from her eyes, but they were not tears of sadness anymore. They were tears of joy. She was doing what she was born to do. She was sharing her father's gift with the world. The last notes of the song filled the air like golden light. Maria played them with perfect control, letting each sound fade slowly into silence. When the final note ended, the cafe remained completely quiet for several long seconds. Then, like thunder, the applause began. Everyone in the cafe stood up and clapped. They clapped harder than they had ever clapped for anything in their lives. Some people shouted, "Bravo!" Others wiped tears from their eyes and continued clapping. Maria sat at the piano bench, breathing hard. She could not believe what had just happened. These same people who had laughed at her and called her names were now giving her a standing ovation. The music had changed everything. Jonathan Hayes almost dropped his coffee cup. His heart was beating so fast he thought he might have a heart attack. He stared at Maria with wide eyes, trying to make sense of what he had just heard and seen. For 30 years, Jonathan had been writing about music for the New York Times. He had heard every famous piano player in the world. He knew their styles, their techniques, their special ways of making music. And what he had just heard was impossible. The way Maria played was exactly like Viktor Petrov. Not similar, not close. Exactly the same. Jonathan remembered Viktor's last concert 15 years ago. It was at Carnegie Hall on a cold December night. Viktor had played the same Chopin piece that Maria just finished. Jonathan had been in the front row, taking notes for his review. He remembered every detail of that performance. Viktor had the same way of shaping the melody, the same way of using soft and loud sounds, the same way of making difficult parts look easy. Even the way he moved his hands and body was the same as Maria. It was like watching Victor's ghost playing the piano. But Viktor Petrov was dead. Jonathan had written his obituary for the newspaper. Viktor, his wife Elena, and their young daughter had died in a car accident in Russia. Or so everyone believed. The car had crashed into a frozen river. The bodies were never found, but no one could survive in that icy water. Jonathan pulled out his old phone and found a video of Viktor's last concert. He had recorded it secretly that night. As he watched the video and looked at Maria, his hands began to shake even more. The resemblance was incredible. Maria had Viktor's green eyes and dark hair. She had his long, thin fingers that were perfect for piano playing. She even had the same small scar on her left hand that Viktor had gotten as a child. But more than the way she looked, it was the way she played that convinced Jonathan. Musical talent could be taught, but this was something deeper. This was in her blood. This was family. Jonathan's mind raced as he tried to understand what this meant. If Maria was Viktor's daughter, then she was not dead. But why was she living on the streets? Why was she begging for food? What had happened to her? While Jonathan was thinking, Maria slowly stood up from the piano bench. The applause was still going on, but she looked confused and scared. She was not used to so much attention. For months, people had ignored her or treated her badly. Now everyone was clapping and smiling at her. The manager walked toward Maria. His face was completely different now. Before, he had been angry and wanted her to leave. Now he looked amazed and sorry for how he had treated her. "Miss," the manager said quietly, "that was the most beautiful music I have ever heard in my life. I am so sorry for how I spoke to you before. Please let me get you some food. Anything you want." Maria looked at him with surprise. She had asked for food in exchange for playing music, but she never expected anyone to actually give her anything. "Thank you," she whispered. Her voice was so soft that the manager had to lean closer to hear her. Other people in the cafe began to approach Maria. The woman in the fur coat who had been so mean before came over with tears in her eyes. "I am so sorry," she said. "I was wrong to judge you. Your music touched my heart." The businessman who had called for security walked up to Maria and handed her a business card. "I work for a music company," he said. "We need to talk. You have incredible talent." But Maria felt overwhelmed by all the attention. She was not used to people being kind to her. For so long, she had been invisible to the world. Now everyone wanted to talk to her, and she did not know what to do. Jonathan knew he had to speak with Maria before she left. He stood up from his table and walked slowly toward her. He did not want to scare her, but he had to know the truth. "Excuse me," Jonathan said gently. "My name is Jonathan Hayes. I write about music for the New York Times. Could I speak with you for just a moment?" Maria looked at him with frightened eyes. She did not trust adults anymore. Too many people had hurt her or let her down. "I did not do anything wrong," she said. "I just played music." "You did nothing wrong," Jonathan said quickly. "In fact, you did something wonderful. I have never heard anyone play piano like that. Where did you learn to play so beautifully?" Maria's eyes filled with tears when she thought about her father. "My papa taught me," she said. "He was a very good piano player, but he died when I was 12 years old." Jonathan's heart almost stopped. "What was your father's name?" he asked quietly. "Viktor," Maria said. "Viktor Petrov. He used to play concerts all over the world, but then he got sick and could not travel anymore. We moved to a small town in Russia where he taught me to play." Jonathan could not breathe. This was Viktor Petrov's daughter. She was alive. The little girl who everyone thought had died was standing right in front of him, grown up and living on the streets of New York. "How did you get to America?" Jonathan asked. "What happened to your mother?" Maria's face became very sad. "After Papa died, Mama became very sick in her heart. She started drinking alcohol and could not take care of me. We lost our house and had to live in bad places. Then Mama brought us to America, but she got worse. She left me alone and never came back. I have been living by myself for almost a year." Jonathan felt angry and sad at the same time. This young woman was the daughter of one of the greatest musicians who ever lived, and she had been living like a homeless person. It was not right. "Maria," Jonathan said, using her name for the first time. "Do you know who your father really was? Do you know how famous he was?" Maria shook her head. "Papa always said he used to play concerts, but we lived very quietly. He just taught me music and told me stories. I thought he was just a regular piano teacher." Jonathan pulled out his phone and showed Maria some videos of her father's concerts. He showed her newspaper articles about Viktor Petrov's amazing career. He showed her pictures of her father playing in the most famous concert halls in the world. Maria stared at the phone screen with amazement. She had never seen her father in fancy clothes playing for thousands of people. In the videos, he looked young and happy. The audiences loved him just like the people in the cafe had loved her music. "Your father was one of the greatest piano players who ever lived," Jonathan explained. "People all over the world knew his name. When he disappeared, the music world was heartbroken. No one knew what happened to him." Maria began to cry as she watched the videos. She finally understood why her father's music had always seemed so special. She understood why he had been so good at teaching her. He was not just her papa. He was a legend. "The way you play," Jonathan continued, "is exactly like your father. You have his gift, you have his talent. The world needs to know that Viktor Petrov's daughter is alive, and that she has inherited his incredible ability." But even as Jonathan spoke about fame and concerts, he looked at Maria's thin face and old clothes. Right now, she needed food and a safe place to sleep more than she needed to be famous. The music world could wait. Taking care of this young woman was more important. Jonathan guided Maria to a quiet corner table in the cafe. The manager brought them hot soup and fresh bread without being asked. Maria ate slowly, as if she could not believe the food was real. She had not eaten a warm meal in many days. "Tell me about your life with your father," Jonathan said gently. "I want to understand what happened." Maria put down her spoon and looked out the window. Her eyes were far away, remembering better times. "We lived in a small house outside Moscow," she began. "Papa stopped doing big concerts when I was very little. He said he wanted to spend time with me and Mama." Jonathan listened carefully. This explained why Viktor had disappeared from the music world. He had chosen family over fame. "Papa had a beautiful piano in our living room," Maria continued. "Every day after school we would sit together and he would teach me. He never got angry when I made mistakes. He would just smile and show me the right way to play." "What about your mother?" Jonathan asked. Maria's face became sad. "Mama was very beautiful and kind when I was little. She would sit and listen to Papa and me play music together. But after Papa died, everything changed." Maria picked up a piece of bread, but did not eat it. Her hands were shaking as she remembered painful things. "Papa got sick very suddenly. The doctor said it was his heart. One day he was teaching me a new song, and the next day he could not get out of bed." Jonathan waited patiently for Maria to continue. He could see that talking about her father's death was very difficult for her. "Papa called me to his bed the night before he died," Maria said, tears starting to fall. "He told me that music was the most important thing he could give me. He said that no matter what happened, I should never stop playing. He made me promise." "And you kept that promise," Jonathan said softly. "Even when we had no food, I would find old pianos in churches or schools and practice," Maria said. "The music kept Papa alive in my heart." Maria told Jonathan how everything fell apart after Viktor died. Her mother, Elena, could not handle the grief. She started drinking alcohol to forget her pain. Soon, she was drinking every day and could not take care of Maria or herself. "We lost our house because Mama could not work," Maria explained. "We moved to smaller and smaller places. Then Mama heard that we could start a new life in America. She sold everything we had left to buy tickets on a ship." Jonathan learned that Elena and Maria had come to America illegally on a cargo ship. They had no papers, no money, and no plan. Elena thought America would solve all their problems, but she was wrong. When we got to New York, Mama became even more sad, Maria said. She could not speak English well. She could not find work. She drank more and more alcohol. Sometimes she would disappear for days. Maria described how they lived in terrible places. First in a cheap hotel, then in a shelter, then on the streets. Elena became sicker and more confused. She would sometimes forget who Maria was or where they were. One morning I woke up and Mama was gone, Maria said, her voice barely a whisper. She left a note saying she was sorry and that I would be better without her. I never saw her again. Jonathan felt his heart breaking as he listened to Maria's story. This young woman had lost everything: her father, her mother, her home, her country. But somehow she had survived on the streets of New York for almost a year. How did you live by yourself? Jonathan asked. Where did you sleep? How did you find food? Maria explained that she had learned to be invisible in the big city. She slept in doorways, under bridges, sometimes in subway stations. She found food in garbage cans behind restaurants. Sometimes kind people would give her money, but usually people ignored her or told her to go away. I tried to get help, Maria said. I went to shelters, but they were full or dangerous. I went to churches, but most people did not believe my story. A homeless teenager with no papers claiming to be the daughter of a famous musician. It sounds crazy. Jonathan understood why no one had helped Maria. Her story was incredible. Without proof, people would think she was lying or mentally ill. But you kept playing music, Jonathan said. Sometimes I would find pianos in hotels or train stations, Maria said. I would play quietly when no one was watching. It was the only thing that made me feel better. It was the only way I could feel close to Papa. Maria told Jonathan about the many times she had tried to play for money on the street, but people usually walked past without stopping. A few times, police officers told her to move along. No one wanted to hear a dirty homeless girl play classical music. Today was the first time I was brave enough to ask someone directly, Maria said. I was so hungry, and when I saw the piano in this cafe, I remembered Papa's words. He always said that music could open doors and touch hearts. Jonathan looked at this brave young woman with amazement. She had been through things that would break most people. She had lost her family, her home, and her childhood. But she had never given up on music. She had kept her promise to her father, even when she had nothing else. Maria, Jonathan said, you are stronger than you know. And your father would be so proud of you. Not just because you play piano beautifully, but because you never gave up. As they talked, more people in the cafe came over to speak with Maria. A music teacher offered to give her free lessons. A wealthy woman wanted to help her find a place to live. The businessman from the record company kept insisting that she could become famous. But Maria felt confused by all the attention. For so long she had been alone and forgotten. Now everyone wanted to help her or use her talent. She did not know who to trust or what to do. I just want to find my mama, Maria said to Jonathan. I want to know if she is alive and safe. I want us to be a family again. Jonathan gently explained that finding Elena would be very difficult. She had been gone for almost a year with no contact. She might have left New York or even left America. She might be using a different name. And sadly, she might not be alive anymore. But you are not alone anymore, Jonathan said. There are people who want to help you, good people who care about you, not just your talent. Maria looked around the cafe at all the faces staring at her. Some looked kind and caring. Others looked excited about her talent. A few looked like they wanted to take advantage of her. Maria had learned to be careful about trusting adults. What should I do? She asked Jonathan. I do not know how to live in this world. I only know how to survive on the streets and how to play piano. Jonathan thought carefully before answering. Maria needed help, but she also needed to be protected from people who might hurt her or use her for money. First, you need a safe place to live and regular food, Jonathan said. Then you need time to heal from all the difficult things that have happened to you. The music can wait. Your father's gift will always be there. Right now, you need to take care of yourself. Maria nodded. but she still looked scared and uncertain. After a year of taking care of herself, it was hard to trust that anyone would really help her without wanting something in return. While Maria and Jonathan were talking quietly in the corner, something amazing was happening with Jonathan's phone recording. He had shared the video on his Twitter account with a simple message. Homeless girl plays piano in NYC cafe. Listen to this and tell me your heart doesn't break. The video started spreading immediately. Jonathan had many followers because he was a famous music critic, but even he was surprised by how fast people were sharing the video. Within the first hour, the video had been shared 1,000 times. People were writing comments like, "This is the most beautiful thing I have ever heard," and "Someone please help this girl." The story was touching hearts all over the internet. Sarah Chen, a music student at Juilliard, saw the video on her phone while eating lunch. She started crying right there in the school cafeteria. She shared the video with all her friends and wrote, "This girl plays better than anyone in our school. How is she living on the streets?" The video reached Marcus Johnson, a famous pianist who had known Viktor Petrov personally. When he heard Maria play, he immediately recognized Viktor's style. Marcus shared the video and wrote, "This sounds exactly like my old friend Viktor Petrov. Does anyone know who this girl is?" Dr. Elizabeth Murphy, who ran a music program for homeless youth, saw the video and knew she had to help. She shared it with the message, "This is why our work matters. There are talented young people on the streets who just need someone to believe in them." The video crossed from music circles into mainstream social media. A popular influencer named Jake Williams, who usually posted about sports and video games, shared the video because his grandmother had sent it to him. "My grandma says this is what real talent looks like," he wrote. His millions of followers started watching and sharing too. Television producer Lisa Rodriguez was scrolling through Twitter during her lunch break when she saw the video. She immediately called her assistant. "Find out everything you can about this girl," she said. "I want her on our morning show tomorrow." News stations started picking up the story. Channel 7 sent a reporter to the cafe, but Maria and Jonathan had already left. The manager told the reporter what had happened, describing how the entire restaurant had been transformed by Maria's playing. "It was like magic," the manager said on camera. "One minute everyone was laughing at her. The next minute everyone was crying because her music was so beautiful. I have never seen anything like it in 30 years of working in restaurants." The video was being translated into different languages and shared around the world. In London, a music professor showed it to his students. In Tokyo, an elderly woman played it for her grandchildren. In Sydney, a radio DJ played the audio on his morning show. Comments were pouring in from everywhere. "Find this girl and help her. She deserves to play at Carnegie Hall. This is what real talent looks like. Someone start a fundraiser for her." But not all the comments were kind. Some people wrote mean things like, "This is probably fake," or "She's just looking for money." Others said, "There are lots of homeless people. Why is she special just because she can play piano?" Most people, though, were moved by the combination of Maria's incredible talent and her difficult situation. The video showed the cruel laughter at the beginning, followed by the stunned silence as she played. People could see the transformation happening in real time. Rachel Stevens, a social worker in the Bronx, shared the video with an important message. "This video shows how we judge people by their appearance instead of their hearts. How many talented, beautiful souls do we ignore every day because they don't look like what we expect?" The hashtag #PianoGirlMaria started trending on Twitter. People were using it to share the video and discuss homelessness, talent, and judging others. The conversation was spreading beyond just music into bigger questions about society. Celebrity musician John Legend saw the video and shared it with his millions of followers. "This young woman has a gift that needs to be nurtured and protected," he wrote. "Music has the power to change lives, and her story is proof of that." By evening, the video had been viewed over 1 million times. News websites were writing articles about it. Radio stations were talking about it. Television shows were planning segments about Maria and her story. But Maria herself had no idea that she was becoming famous on the internet. She had never used social media and did not own a phone or computer. She was spending her first night in months in a real bed, thanks to Jonathan, who had paid for her to stay in a small hotel. Jonathan*'s phone was ringing constantly with calls from reporters, talent agents, and record companies. Everyone wanted to know more about Maria. Everyone wanted to talk to her or sign her to a contract. "This is getting out of control," Jonathan told his wife over the phone. "The whole world wants to find this girl, but she's just a teenager who needs help, not fame." The story was being covered on television news shows. Anderson Cooper talked about it on CNN. The hosts of Good Morning America discussed plans to invite Maria on their show. Entertainment Tonight wanted to do a special segment about her. International news outlets picked up the story too. The BBC wrote an article titled, "Homeless Girl's Piano Performance Captures Hearts Worldwide." French television showed the video on their evening news. The story was being discussed in newspapers from Germany to Japan. Music industry executives were scrambling to find Maria. Record labels were preparing contracts. Concert halls were discussing booking her for performances. Agents were planning to represent her. But some people in the music world were more cautious. They remembered other stories of talented people who became famous too quickly and were hurt by the pressure and attention. "She needs time to heal and grow before she's ready for this level of attention," said Dr. Patricia Williams, a psychologist who worked with young performers. "Fame can be dangerous for someone who has been through trauma." Meanwhile, internet detectives were trying to figure out Maria's real identity. Some people had already connected her story to Victor Petrov after Marcus Johnson's comment. Music historians were researching Victor's family and trying to confirm if Maria could really be his daughter. The video was being analyzed by music experts on YouTube and music blogs. They broke down Maria's technique and compared it to famous performances by other pianists. Everyone agreed that her skill level was extraordinary. By midnight, the video had been viewed over 5 million times. #Piano Girl Maria was the #1 trending topic on Twitter. The story was the most read article on multiple news websites. But in a small hotel room in Manhattan, Maria was sleeping peacefully for the first time in months. She had no idea that her life was about to change forever. She had no idea that millions of people around the world now knew her story and wanted to help her. Jonathan sat in the hotel lobby, his phone still buzzing with calls and messages. He was trying to figure out how to protect Maria from the storm of attention that was coming her way. He knew that by morning the whole world would be looking for the homeless girl who played piano like an angel. Maria woke up in the hotel bed feeling confused. For a moment she forgot where she was. The bed was soft and warm, so different from the cold streets where she usually slept. Sunlight came through clean windows. She could hear cars and people outside, but she felt safe. Then she remembered everything. The cafe, the piano, all the people clapping. It felt like a dream, but she knew it was real. Down in the hotel lobby, Jonathan was surrounded by reporters and camera crews. His phone had not stopped ringing all night. The story about Maria was now the biggest news in the music world. "Mr. Hayes," called a reporter from CNN, "can you confirm that this girl is really Victor Petrov's daughter?" "Where is she now?" asked someone from the Today Show. "Can we interview her?" Jonathan held up his hands to quiet everyone. "Please," he said. "This young woman has been through terrible things. She needs time to rest and recover before she talks to anyone." But the music world was not waiting. Lang Lang, one of the most famous pianists in the world, had posted a video response on Instagram. "I have watched this young woman's performance 50 times, he said. "Her talent is beyond anything I have ever seen. She plays with the soul of someone who has lived through great pain but found beauty in music." The New York Philharmonic's music director, James Chen, called an emergency meeting with his staff. "We need to find this girl," he said. "If she really is Victor Petrov's daughter, she belongs on our stage." Carnegie Hall's booking manager was already preparing a contract. "We want to offer her a solo performance," she told her assistant. This could be the most important concert of the decade. Record companies were competing to sign Maria. Sony Classical offered $1 million recording contract. Deutsche Grammophon promised to make her the youngest artist ever featured on their prestigious label. Warner Classics said they would give her complete creative control over her music. But the most important response came from musicians who had known and worked with Viktor Petrov. They were sharing memories and confirming that Maria's playing style was identical to her father. Quote S. Martha Argerich, the legendary pianist, posted a heartfelt message. Victor was my dear friend and one of the greatest musicians I ever knew. If this beautiful girl is his daughter, then she carries his gift and deserves our protection and support. The Moscow Conservatory, where Victor had studied, announced they would offer Maria a full scholarship. Viktor Petrov was one of our most distinguished graduates, said the dean. His daughter would be welcome here with open arms. Yo-Yo Ma, the famous cellist, posted a video message. Music has the power to heal and connect us all. This young woman's story reminds us why we must never give up on art, even in our darkest moments. I would be honored to perform with her someday. Music. Schools around the world were offering scholarships. Juilliard, Curtis Institute, Royal Academy of Music in London, they all wanted Maria to study with them. Teachers were volunteering to work with her for free. But there was also controversy in the music world. Some people questioned whether it was right to make such a big deal about one homeless person just because she could play piano. There are thousands of homeless youth who need help, wrote one music blogger. Why should she get special treatment? Just because she has this talent? What about all the other kids on the streets? Others worried about putting too much pressure on Maria too quickly. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, who studied child prodigies, warned on television, "We have seen many young talents destroyed by fame and pressure. This girl needs therapy and stability before she needs concert halls." Meanwhile, private investigators hired by record companies were trying to find Maria's mother, Elena. They searched hospitals, shelters, and immigration records. Some thought they had found leads, but nothing was confirmed. The story had spread beyond just music news. It was being discussed on talk shows, in newspapers, and on social media around the world. Everyone had an opinion about what should happen to Maria. Some celebrities offered to adopt her. A billionaire businessman said he would pay for her education. A famous actress wanted to make a movie about her story. Hollywood agents were already discussing film rights. But in all the excitement, people seemed to forget that Maria was still just a frightened teenager who had been living on the streets. She did not understand contracts or fame or the music business. She just wanted to feel safe and maybe find her mother. Jonathan, quote, S. phone rang again. This time it was Gustavo Dudamel, the conductor of the Los Angeles Philharmonic. Jonathan, he said, I must meet this young woman. Her playing reminds me why I became a musician in the first place. The Vienna State Opera called to offer Maria a chance to perform there. The Berlin Philharmonic wanted to feature her in their next season. Concert halls in Paris, London, and Tokyo were all competing to book her. But the most touching response came from ordinary music lovers around the world. A grandmother in Ohio started an online fundraiser to help Maria. Music students at universities were organizing concerts to raise money for homeless youth in Maria's honor. Children were sending letters and drawings to the hotel where they thought Maria was staying. Dear Piano Girl, wrote an 8-year-old from Texas, your music made my mommy cry happy tears. I hope you get lots of food and a nice place to live. Local musicians in New York were organizing a benefit concert. This girl's story has reminded us all why music matters, said the organizer. We want to help her and other young people like her. The story was changing how people thought about homelessness and talent. Social workers reported that donations to homeless shelters had increased dramatically since the video went viral. People were paying more attention to homeless individuals on the streets. Maria's story has opened people's hearts, said Dr. Jennifer Lopez, who ran a program for homeless youth. Suddenly, everyone realizes that the person they walk past on the street might have incredible gifts and dreams. Music therapy programs were getting more funding. Schools were starting programs to identify and help talented students from poor families. The video had sparked a movement to find and support young artists who might otherwise be overlooked. But as the offers and attention continued to grow, Jonathan became more worried about protecting Maria. He knew that all this fame and money could be dangerous for a young person who had been through so much trauma. Late that night, Jonathan sat in his hotel room making lists of all the people who wanted to meet Maria. Record companies, concert halls, television shows, movie producers, book publishers. The list went on and on. He thought about Viktor Petrov and wondered what his old friend would want for his daughter. Probably not fame and pressure, but safety, education, and time to heal from all the pain she had experienced. The music world was ready to embrace Maria with open arms. But Jonathan wondered if Maria was ready for the music world. Tomorrow he would have to help her understand what was happening and make some very important decisions about her future. Outside his window, New York City continued its endless rhythm. Somewhere in those streets were other talented young people who, like Maria, just needed someone to believe in them and give them a chance. When Maria woke up the next morning, Jonathan was sitting in a chair by the window looking very worried. His phone was on the table, turned off for the first time in 2 days. "Good morning, Maria," he said gently. "How did you sleep?" "Better than I have in a long time," Maria said. "But you look tired. Did you sleep at all?" Jonathan smiled sadly. "Maria, I need to tell you something important. Yesterday, after you played piano, I made a video recording. I shared it on the internet, and now millions of people have seen it." Maria looked confused. "What does that mean?" "It means you are famous now," Jonathan explained. "People all over the world know about you and want to help you. But it also means that your life is going to change in very big ways." Jonathan showed Maria some of the news articles on his laptop. She saw her own face on television screens and newspaper websites. She could not read English very well, but she understood that people were talking about her everywhere. "I do not want to be famous," Maria said quietly. "I just want to find my mama and have a normal life." Jonathan understood how overwhelmed Maria felt. He had seen what fame could do to young people, and he wanted to protect her. "We can control how fast things happen," he said. "But first, we need to get you somewhere safe where all these reporters and agents cannot bother you." Outside the hotel, news trucks were parked on the street. Reporters were waiting to get pictures of Maria. Jonathan knew they could not stay there much longer. That afternoon, Dr. Elizabeth Murphy arrived at the hotel. She was the woman who ran the music program for homeless youth. Jonathan had called her because he trusted her to help Maria make good decisions. "Hello, Maria," Dr. Murphy said with a kind smile. "I have been working with young people like you for 15 years. I understand what you are going through." Dr. Murphy explained that she had a safe place where Maria could stay while they figured out what to do next. It was a special home for talented young people who had difficult backgrounds. Maria would have her own room, good food, and counseling to help her deal with all the trauma she had experienced. "Will I be able to play piano there?" Maria asked. "We have 3 beautiful pianos," Dr. Murphy said. "You can play whenever you want. And if you choose to, we can help you prepare for the opportunities that are waiting for you." But before Maria could make any decisions about her future, she had one request. "Please," she said to Jonathan and Dr. Murphy, "I need to find my mama. I cannot move forward until I know what happened to her." Jonathan had been expecting this. He had already hired a private investigator named David Chen to look for Elena Petrova. David specialized in finding missing persons, especially immigrants who might be living without legal papers. "We will do everything we can to find your mother," Jonathan promised. "But it might take time, and we might not like what we discover." The search for Elena began immediately. David Chen and his team looked through hospital records, shelter registration lists, and police reports. They checked immigration databases and social service records. They put up flyers in Russian neighborhoods. Throughout New York City. Meanwhile, Maria moved to Dr. Murphy's facility in a quiet part of Brooklyn. The building was old but comfortable, with practice rooms and a common area where young people could spend time together. Maria met other teenagers who had difficult stories like hers. There was Carlos, a violin player whose family had fled violence in El Salvador. There was Aisha, a singer whose parents had died in a car accident. There was Zhang Wei, a dancer whose family had lost everything in a fire. For the first time in over a year, Maria felt like she was not alone. These young people understood what it was like to lose everything and still hold on to their art. Music saved my life, Carlos told Maria as they sat at dinner. When everything else was gone, I still had my violin. Same with me, said Aisha. Singing was the only thing that made the pain bearable. Dr. Murphy assigned Maria to work with a counselor named Miss Rodriguez. They met every day to talk about Maria's feelings and help her process all the difficult things that had happened. To her, it is normal to feel scared about the future, Miss Rodriguez explained. You have been surviving day by day for so long that thinking about long-term plans feels impossible. While Maria was learning to feel safe again, the search for her mother continued. David Chen's team found a lead at a hospital in Queens. A woman matching Elena's description had been treated for alcohol poisoning 6 months earlier, but she had left before doctors could help her with her addiction. They found another lead at a shelter in the Bronx. A woman named Elena had stayed there for 3 weeks in the winter, but she had left suddenly one night and never returned. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A Russian Orthodox church in Brighton Beach had posted flyers about Maria becoming famous, and a priest named Father Dmitri called David Chen. I think I know this woman you are looking for, Father Dmitri said. There is a lady who comes to our soup kitchen sometimes. She is very sick and sad. She talks about losing her daughter. Her name is Elena. David Chen rushed to Brighton Beach with Jonathan and Dr. Murphy. They waited at the church for hours, hoping Elena would come for the evening meal. Just as they were about to give up, a thin woman with gray hair walked slowly through the church doors. Jonathan recognized her immediately from old photos he had found of Victor's family. Despite the gray hair and the lines on her face, this was definitely Elena Petrova. Elena looked terrible. She was much too thin and her clothes were dirty and torn. Her eyes were empty and sad, like someone who had given up hope. She moved like an old woman, even though she was only in her 40s. Father Dmitri approached Elena gently. Elena, he said in Russian, there are some people here who want to talk to you about your daughter. Elena looked up with frightened eyes. My Maria? What happened to my Maria? Is she hurt? She is safe, Jonathan said in his limited Russian. She is safe, and she is looking for you. Elena began to cry. She cried so hard that her whole body shook. I thought she was dead, she sobbed. I thought I had killed her by leaving her alone. I have been praying for her soul every day. Dr. Murphy knelt down next to Elena. Your daughter is alive and well, she said through Father Dimitri's translation. She has been looking for you. She loves you and wants to see you. Elena was afraid to believe it was true. For months she had been living with the guilt of abandoning Maria. She had tried to drink away the pain, but it never worked. She had become sicker and sadder every day. I am not a good mother, Elena said. I left her alone. I am sick in my head and I cannot take care of anyone. You can get better, Dr. Murphy said. There are people who can help you. And Maria needs you to get better because she loves you. That night, Elena agreed to go to a treatment center for people with alcohol addiction. It was the first step toward healing and maybe someday being a mother again. When they told Maria that her mother had been found, she cried with relief and joy. Is she okay? Maria asked. Can I see her? She's very sick, Dr. Murphy explained. Honestly, she needs time to get better before you can be together, but she is alive and she loves you very much. Maria understood that healing would take time for both of them. She had her own trauma to work through, and her mother had addiction and mental health problems that needed treatment. But for the first time since her father died, Maria felt hope about the future. Her mother was alive. She was not alone anymore, and maybe with time and help they could be a family again. 6 months passed like a beautiful song. Maria spent her days at Dr. Murphy's facility, healing from her trauma and preparing for the future. She worked with Miss Rodriguez to understand her feelings and learn how to trust people again. She ate, regular meals, and slept in a warm bed every night. Most importantly, Maria played piano every day. She learned new pieces and practiced the songs her father had taught her. Her technique became even better, and her music became more emotional and mature. During this time, Maria's mother, Elena, was getting treatment at a special hospital for people with addiction and mental health problems. It was hard work, but Elena was determined to get better so she could be a good mother to Maria again. Every week, Maria and Elena had supervised visits. At first, they could only talk on the phone. Then they could meet for short visits with counselors present. Slowly, they began to trust each other again and rebuild their relationship. "I am so sorry I left you alone," Elena said during one of their visits. "I was sick, and I thought you would be better without me, but I never stopped loving you." "I know, Mama," Maria said, holding her mother's hand. "I understand now that you were sick. What matters is that we are together again." While Maria was healing and reconnecting with her mother, the music world waited patiently. Jonathan made sure that Maria was protected from too much pressure and attention. Only the most important and respectful opportunities were considered. Carnegie Hall had held Maria's performance date open for 6 months. "We will wait as long as necessary," the director said. "When she is ready, we will be honored to present her." Lang Lang visited Maria at the facility and played duets with her. "Your father would be so proud," he told her. "Not just of your music, but of your strength and kindness." Finally, Dr. Murphy and Miss Rodriguez agreed that Maria was ready to return to the public stage. She had processed her trauma, rebuilt her confidence, and reconnected with her mother. Most importantly, she wanted to perform again. "I want to share Papa's music with the world," Maria told Jonathan, "and I want to help other young people who are homeless or in difficult situations." Maria's return concert was planned for a special evening at Carnegie Hall. All the proceeds would go to her new foundation for homeless youth with musical talent. The foundation would provide housing, education, and performance opportunities for young people who had been overlooked by society. The night of the concert arrived. Outside Carnegie Hall, hundreds of people waited in line. The tickets had sold out in 10 minutes, and people were offering thousands of dollars to buy them from others. Inside the famous concert hall, every seat was filled. In the audience were some of the most important people in the music world. Musicians, critics, conductors, and music lovers from around the globe had come to hear Maria play. In the front row sat Elena, clean and sober for 4 months. She wore a simple but elegant dress that Dr. Murphy had helped her choose. Tears were already falling from her eyes as she waited to hear her daughter perform. Also in the front row were the staff from the cafe where Maria's story had begun. The manager who had once tried to throw her out now wore his best suit and carried flowers to give her after the concert. Backstage, Maria stood in her dressing room looking at herself in the mirror. She wore a beautiful black concert gown that had been donated by a famous designer. Her hair was styled professionally, and she looked elegant and confident. But inside, she was still the same Maria who loved music and wanted to honor her father's memory. Jonathan knocked on her dressing room door. "Are you ready?" he asked. "I think Papa is with me tonight," Maria said. "I can feel him guiding my hands." When Maria walked onto the Carnegie Hall stage, the entire audience stood and applauded for 5 full minutes before she even reached the piano. The sound was like thunder, rolling through the famous concert hall. Maria sat at the beautiful Steinway grand piano and adjusted the bench, just like her father had taught her. She looked out at the audience and saw thousands of faces looking back at her with love and admiration. She began with the same Chopin piece she had played in the cafe 6 months earlier. But now her playing was even more mature and expressive. Every note told the story of her journey from the streets to this magnificent stage. The audience was completely silent, hanging on every note. Maria's technique was perfect, but more than that, her music spoke directly to people's hearts. Some people cried. Others sat with their mouths open in amazement. Everyone felt they were witnessing something truly special. After the Chopin, Maria played one of her father's favorite pieces by Rachmaninoff. As she played, she imagined Victor sitting beside her on the bench, just like when she was a little girl. She could almost hear his voice saying, "Beautiful, Maria. You are making the piano sing. For her final piece, Maria played something she had composed herself. It was a musical story about losing everything and finding hope again. It was about the power of music to heal broken hearts and bring people together. When the last note faded into silence, the audience exploded with applause. People jumped to their feet and clapped until their hands hurt. Some shouted, "Bravo!" Others wiped tears from their eyes. Maria stood and bowed, then gestured toward the audience to show her gratitude. In the front row, she saw her mother, Elena, clapping and crying with joy. She saw Jonathan beaming with pride. She saw Dr. Murphy and Miss Rodriguez and all the young people from the facility who had become her family. But Maria also thought about all the homeless young people who were still on the streets tonight. She thought about kids who were hungry and cold and forgotten by society. This concert was for them too. When the applause finally died down, Maria stepped forward to speak. Her voice was clear and strong as it carried through the concert hall. 6 months ago, I was living on the streets of New York, she said. I was hungry and alone and afraid. But music saved my life. Music led me to kind people who helped me heal and grow. She looked directly at her mother in the audience. Tonight, I want to announce the creation of the Viktor Petrov Foundation for Musical Youth. This foundation will help homeless and disadvantaged young people discover and develop their musical talents. The audience applauded again, even more enthusiastically than before. Every child deserves a chance to make music, Maria continued. Every young person deserves to be seen and heard and valued. No one should have to ask to play piano in exchange for food. Maria's words echoed through Carnegie Hall and touched every heart in the audience. Her story had come full circle, from a desperate girl begging for food to a confident young woman using her platform to help others. After the concert, there was a reception where Maria met with donors and supporters of her foundation. Record company executives lined up to offer her contracts, but Maria was careful to choose partners who shared her values and wanted to support her charitable work. Late that night, Maria and Elena sat together in a quiet hotel room. For the first time in years, they felt like a real family again. Papa would be so proud of you, Elena said, brushing Maria's hair like she used to when Maria was little. He would be proud of both of us, Maria said. We survived the worst things and found our way back to each other. Outside their window, New York City sparkled with millions of lights. Somewhere in those streets, there were still young people who were hungry and homeless and forgotten. But now there was hope. Now there was the Viktor Petrov Foundation. Now, there was proof that even in the darkest times, music and kindness could change everything. Maria's journey from the streets to Carnegie Hall had shown the world that talent and dreams exist in the most unexpected places. Her story became a reminder to look more carefully at the people we pass by every day, because any one of them might be carrying a gift that could change the world. And in a small church in Brooklyn, Father Dmitri smiled as he read about Maria's concert in the newspaper. He had seen many miracles in his life, but none more beautiful than the reunion of a lost daughter with her music, her mother, and her purpose in life.